Hi, everyone. It's lovely to meet you. My name is Bev Butkow, and I'm a visual artist. But I wasn't always an artist. I started out as an accountant, about as different to being an artist as you could possibly have. And I've been on this amazing creative journey, learning how to be an artist, learning how to let go of this kind of like element of control, and just to be much more free in the world. And this talk today is talking about 10 rules for living a creative life and for remaining relevant. And yeah, I hope that it's going to be really interesting and exciting and valuable for you. My journey to becoming a creative person has meant that I've embraced a whole lot of beauty, joy, excitement, and challenges in my life that I didn't know could exist. It feels like I am living my purpose and that it's meaningful to me. And I hope that you're all on that same kind of journey. And the truth of it is that a creative life is a complex journey. So it always helps just to have maybe a little bit of input from somebody who's, maybe a little bit ahead of the journey than you are. So rule number 1 of living a creative life and remaining relevant. For me, stubbornness is a virtue. And I know that we always think of stubbornness as a negative emotion, as something that a willful child does. But actually having courage, resilience, and a really thick skin, bearing down and just keeping on going is one of the things that enables you to live a creative life. It's important to protect your energy and your light, because it's a world that can be fraught with disappointment or with kind of questioning yourself as to whether you are good enough, as to whether your work is good enough, as to whether anyone appreciates, whether anyone understands what you're doing. So for me, just this bearing down always with stubbornness and just kind of like head down, and I'm going to reach that, whatever this goal is that I set for myself, with that kind of like tenacity and discipline, has been one of the really, really important characteristics that I bring to my creative career. The second rule for me is that I invest in a lifelong project, and I know that this process is going to be something that will continue till the day that I die. And it's much easier to not get anxious about my progress, or whether my work is good enough, or whether I'm going at the kind of pace that I want to be going at, if I say that I've got another 40 years or 50 years or whatever it is to keep on making art, and to just know that there are these pit stops that come along the journey. There's, an exhibition here and then another exhibition, but those aren't the end point of what I'm doing. For me, it's a lifelong process, and it means that I don't judge myself prematurely. One day when I'm 94, I intend to sit back and look at my career and see what I've managed to achieve, and if I've managed to make the most of whatever talent I managed to have. But I'm deeply invested in the process and the just moving step by step on this journey that I'm on. I think one of the reasons to invest in process is that you don't expect this kind of like eureka moment to like hit you, the lightning bulb that one day hits you and says, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It's always an incremental process. It's you work a little bit, you do a bit, you refine, you work, you think about that, you learn something, somebody gives you some input. And in that process of keeping on going, eureka moments happen. And I think that it also helps us understand that you feel like an imposter when you're on the process of making art. It's an absolute given. And that is a sign of growth. It's a sign that you're pushing yourself and extending yourself, and always be making yourself uncomfortable with what you're doing. And I actually find that when I feel like I'm an imposter, I am proud of myself, because I see that it means that I'm pushing myself as hard as I can. Rule number 3, stay in and get out. And by that, I mean stay in your studio, but get out into the world as well. The studio is the place. This is the place where all the creativity happens. And for me, it's really important to separate my studio from what happens outside in my world. So I have a whole process that I go through when I walk into my studio. I light scented candles, I make a cup of coffee, I walk around the room, generally a few times, see what's going on, switch off my phone, and then I have distanced myself from all the worries and the stresses and the to-do lists and all the things that happen in the outside world. And I've invested in a creative process that is a lot of fun. It's experimental, it's exploratory, and in that process failures come so often, and half of what I make ends up being an experiment that's a disaster nobody else can look at, but I learn from each one of those things. So I'm embracing not knowing, and I'm embracing uncertainty in my creative process. And in that, these eureka moments have come, and these moments of doing something that I didn't know that I could ever do. But it's always in the playful funness of it, as opposed to in a kind of like serious, anxious way. In terms of getting out into the world, it's so important to imbibe yourself in as much as you can read, you can see, you can go see exhibitions, you attend artist talks, you speak to other artists, meet other artists, because I think that we get inspiration from all the things we see around us. And possibly your inspiration comes from being in nature. Possibly it comes from being at the sea. Whatever it is that gives you inspiration and inspires your creative process is as important as those moments that you are in the studio. Rule number 4 for me is that I think in other forms. I make sure that not only am I making in the studio, whether I'm weaving or painting, but I'm also writing. I'm journaling on a daily basis. I take a problem that I'm having in weaving into painting, and I try to see how painting can resolve the weaving problem. I draw a lot, and I think that through processing the problems that I have and doing problem solving in different mediums has been a very, very good technique for me to kind of get out this feeling of feeling stuck within a problem or within a moment, or not knowing how to move forward, whether it's with the painting or with any other work that I'm working on. Rule number 5, set up an accountability group. I think it's really important to understand that being an artist is an entrepreneurial life. You have to be self-directed, self-guided, self-motivated. Nothing happens without you making it happen. So you've got to set goals, you've got to set deadlines for yourself, you've got to meet them, you've got to set challenges for yourself. And having an accountability group means that you've always got somebody who's helping you. Just check that you are actually meeting those goals, the deadlines, the challenges that you're setting for yourself. And I found it to be a very, very nurturing part of my practice, where I've got other people who in as many struggles and challenges as I am, and we motivate each other, and we get each other working and doing and pushing each other forward in a way that's very, very supportive and has been very, very fundamental to my practice. Rule number 6 is find your center and find a mentor. And when I say find your center, I mean that you need to be able to crit your own work. You need to be able to stand back from the artist and look objectively at what you're making. William Kentridge has the videos that he makes of himself as artist and himself as critic, and you can see the critic thinking with the head and the artist trying to work with the body. And I think setting up those 2 separate personas for yourself is absolutely critical in moving your making forward. But also to have an external mentor, somebody who can give you feedback and who can help you see the blind spots in your work and the blind spots in your process, help you see what you're actually making, and also guide you, nurture you, etc. Rule number 7, since we're talking about community and community building, is exactly that, building a community. It's about finding your place in the art world. And I just wanted to say that the art world is almost like a misnomer in a way, because there's so many elements to this amorphous art ecosystem. You might decide that you're a more academic kind of artist, and being at a university or aligned to a university is a place that stimulates the intellectual side of your growth and development as an artist. You can decide that you are at your absolute best, just drawing scenes from nature, and that's absolutely fine. I think there's a place for everybody, but what you need to do is find other people who invest in that place in the same way as you. I have a spiritual community that I'm part of, and it's a very, very important part of my making, because it nurtures me, and I get the kindness and the support of that community, and it also feeds that spiritual part of my nature, and that energy then goes into my work as well. So I think building a community, networking, finding out who's making similar artworks to you is a very important tool in actually managing to live a creative life. Rule number 8 is to develop your own authentic voice. This is a really hard thing to do, because it requires not being influenced by all the things that you see around you, and getting to something that's very authentic and real to yourself. When you start out as an artist, I think it's almost inevitable that you will copy things that you see around you, because we take the influence around us, we take them into the studio, we make them our own, they become part of our work in a way. And through these processes of making, standing back, looking, writing, thinking, all the the journaling that we were talking about, the different processes that you've gone through to build yourself creatively, you start weaving together something that becomes your handprint. And what that does is it means that you develop a uniqueness about your work. You also develop something that's very authentic to only you, and nobody else could make something that's the same as yours. It also helps when you have an authentic voice. I think it helps to develop a conversation around your work. So the big question here is then to ask, what kind of artist do you want to be? What is your why? Why are you making art? Why are you investing your life in doing this thing? Is it a hobby? Is it something that you feel nurtures your soul? It's healing for you, and as a result, your creativity is very personal, not meant to be shared with the world. Are you making work that creates a conversation with other people, and therefore it's important to be exhibiting that work? What kind of artist do you want to be? What is your aim or your goal of being an artist? What is your why? Rule number 9 is that context matters. So why should anyone listen to you as an artist? Why should they look at your work? I think it's very important for us to locate what we make in the context of the world around us. What contribution do you have to make to the conversations within your country, within your city, within the global South? You're a South African artist within the global South. And to do this, to understand context and to bring context into your work, requires you to delve into yourself a lot, to understand yourself personally, and to start making art from a place that's very personal, even if it's talking about political issues or external environmental issues, etc. All of this is filtered through who you are and where you come from, and your learnings and your experiences and your perspectives. So make from a deeply personal place, but remember that the environment around you is absolutely critical for making meaningful art. And my last rule, one of the most important ones, is to be kind to yourself, to always be kind to yourself, because living a creative life is a really, really tough life. As much as it's beautiful and exciting and stimulating and full of growth opportunities to meet the most amazing people and to have the most amazing creative experiences, it's also very challenging. And I often think it's like, being on a raft out at sea, and there aren't rules and there aren't ways to keep control of this environment that you're in. So being kind to yourself means that you don't compare yourself to anyone else. And it means that you're always gentle with the progress you've made, with the work that you've made. Yes, it can be better. Yes, I'm sure in a month or 2 months or 2 years or 3 years, it will be better if you want it to be. But in the meantime, acknowledge the efforts, the uncertainty, the lack of control, the not knowing that you're experiencing all the time, and appreciate that for how unbelievably brave you're being in being an artist. I believe that being creative is the thing that separates humans from all other earth beings. And I believe it's our greatest connection to source, however you believe that source energy or power to be. When we look at the art museums around the world, I mean, art has existed for 5,000 years. Cave drawings have existed for 60, 70,000 years. There's a reason why art is so critical to us in the world, and maybe we don't understand it, and maybe we don't know what it is. But I can tell you that investing in a creative life is one of the most meaningful and rewarding things that you could ever do. Thank you so much for listening to me and giving me the opportunity to talk.